This is Robbie McKenzie Youth Ministry 6.3. I'm with the one and only Rodney Woo. Rodney is coming to us from Singapore, which is just a few miles drive here from Springfield, Tennessee. Actually, it's 13 hours ahead of time, and Rodney's agreed to talk with me a little bit. He wrote a book that I've been impressed with, and I'll put that all on the video as well. And I appreciate Rodney so much. Rodney, kind of tell us a little bit about where you're at, what you're doing, and what's going on in your life now there in Singapore.
Yeah, right. I'm in Singapore as the senior pastor of the International Baptist Church of Singapore, and been serving here for over a year. Moved from Houston, Texas, where I was for 18 years. That kind of described a multiracial transformation from an all-white church to a church that had 44 different countries represented.
Oh, wow.
So there was a kinship and a connection between Wilcrest Baptist in Houston and IBC here in Singapore.
That's super. That's super. I'm interviewing Rodney here. We're talking about the idea of multi-ethnic churches, multiracial churches, and how to bridge the gap. And right off the bat, just from your research and your work in ministry, why are our churches, and let me back up a little bit if that's okay. Churches, in my experience, there's the white churches, the black churches, and then there's Hispanic churches, and then all sorts of churches based on their certain ethnicity. And even in my context here in Springfield, I can't speak for everyone else, but there's churches that seem to be still years removed from the civil rights, years removed from all that conflict. There's still churches, especially in my location here in the Southeast, there's still many churches that are racially divided and ethnically divided. So just from your research, why are churches so divided when it comes to race and ethnicity?
Probably two or three primary reasons, and another reason that's propagated that mentality, especially among evangelical churches. That I think it always comes back to the Jew-Gentile issue, even in Scripture. So this is not a recent phenomenon or even an American issue.
Sure.
It goes all the way back to the private of human beings in Genesis 11, with the separation of human races by language because of sin. So it kind of goes back a long ways. But recently, probably people are they gravitate toward people who are like them.
Right.
It's comfortable. What do we have in common? What are similarities? And then the propagation of that. I don't know if that was the intention of the homogeneous unit principle that came from McGavran and Wagner, but it seemed to take a mission strategy and principle in India with the caste system and translate it and transport it to the States and now globally. That the most effective way to reach people is through similarities.
Sure.
But in Scripture, I think that's a great tool for evangelism, but it's not a real great model for local church or biblical church mandates or what we should look like. So there's a lot of reasons. Again, humanly, sociologist Mike Emerson has done a great work out of Rice and Houston, kind of like the forefront on that. And there's others coming after him. But the research really shows that people aren't really that interested in being uncomfortable when it comes to church.
Sure.
So,
sure.
That.
A question or at least that I have for you that I'm very much interested in, and it comes from a statement I had with someone not from our church but from another church, and they made the statement, it's okay to have churches that are white churches and churches that are African American or black churches that are Hispanics. It's okay because we cater to those needs. We cater to those needs, and they say it's okay to have rich churches, poor churches, just as long as they're the churches that are speaking to those situations in their own context. And so, how would you answer that? Do we even need to integrate and bring people together?
I think Blackaby has said a little bit thing a long time ago. Is if you ask the wrong question, you'll get the wrong answer.
Right.
And I think if you start asking a question, are we meeting people's needs and what are the people's needs? And then you ask humans or even lost humans what their greatest needs are, instead of what the scriptures say our greatest need is.
Absolutely.
So I think you're asking the wrong question. I think the question is, it's not, are we meeting needs, or are we getting along, or do we have these things in common? But the question is, are we a biblical church?
Absolutely.
And when you look at the church, that's the whole book of Romans.
Yep.
So when you do Jew-Gentile divide, so I think your scripture mandates that we reach across not only racial lines and ethnic lines, but social, economic. It just so happens in America, the most visible line is the racial line.
Yep.
But it's not always the strongest line. Sometimes it's economic, sometimes it's social, sometimes it's other aspects. But if you cross the racial line, it would almost be hypocritical for a multiracial church and not a multi-economic or educational or social church as well.
Yeah, you're speaking towards the idea of Scripture, and just what are some biblical mandates, the witness of Scripture, other than the ones you've mentioned, that speak to uniting folks and bringing folks together?
The thing is, the ones that grab my heart that I just, it's actually the first chapter that I've written on the color of church, is in Genesis 1:26 and 27. It says, we're made in the image of God.
Yep. And
then Paul says later in Colossians 3 that image should be the way we live.
Yep.
We reflect Christ. So when you look at a person, immediately you see the image of God in them, regardless of skin color or texture of hair. So that's kind of where we start. Everyone's made with the same imprint, same resemblance, and obviously that's a spiritual, not a physical element.
Sure.
Then you fast. So we share the same image.
Right.
The second part is fast forward to Revelation 7, and you see that every tribe, every nation, every tongue, every group are gathered on the same throne, worshiping the same Lamb, singing the same song, wearing the same robe.
Right.
And so heaven's going to look like that. So we share God's salvation in the future in heaven with that, and we share the same image. The problem is not in the beginning or the end. The problem is the between.
Absolutely.
Paul, there's this really clearly in Ephesians 2 when he says that you were far away, but brought near by the blood of Christ. And that's our connection with Christ. But then verse 14 of Ephesians 2 says, for he himself is our peace.
Yep.
We'll make both groups into one, and broke down the barrier, the dividing wall between the Jews and Greeks. So it comes down to, scripturally, we should be connected. In fact, in a multiracial church, the only thing that we have in common is Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
So it kind of plows through all the other debris pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I was thinking the other day, I was in conversation when I was emailing back and forth about what I might and discerning what I might ask you. I was thinking about if there was ever a church that had so many issues to deal with as far as ethnicity and race. It was the first century church. They dealt with it all, Jew, Gentile, all that. Rich, poor. There were so many things that they dealt with. So there's that definite mandate. Say we want next question. Say we want to be that church. We've discerned and we said okay. And there may be even some confession that needs to go on. Say we want to move in that direction. Where we want to be integrated, and we want to do the biblical mandate of uniting. What first steps should we do, in your opinion?
I don't know if ours was the perfect road because we had so many trials and error on that. I think our first one, we adopted a vision statement.
Okay.
It says Wilcrest Baptist Church is God's multi-ethnic bridge.
Yep.
It draws all people to Jesus Christ and transforms them from unbelievers to missionaries. So we kind of had 180 white people saying that every week, which is kind of comical but challenging.
Absolutely.
So I think where there's no vision, people perish.
Sure. So
if you don't have that godly vision and mandate, go make disciples of all the nations, or I'm under obligation, go to the Greek, to the barbarian, go to the wise, and to the foolish. So when you don't have that divine mandate driving you, you lose momentum. Yep. There's enough opposition, not only in society, but opposition within the denominational ranks in Christianity as a whole, that you're not going to get a lot of accolades or applause or encouragement. So number one is vision. I think number two are practical measures. You have to address leadership, and you have to address worship.
Yep.
You can say we want to be, and usually the mentality, especially among evangelicals, is our doors are open to everybody. All they need to do is come.
Right.
Well, the problem is, you have to assimilate into the dominant culture. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what culture that is, but they don't mind you coming, perhaps, But you definitely are going to have to make adjustments as a newcomer. Where an integrated church actually, as new people come in, they bring something that the church doesn't have, and then we're able to incorporate that culture or that expression of worship or that leadership style into the body of Christ. So I think leadership and worship are the two most tangible, um, visible, and it communicates most loudly to people who come in.
Man, that's so powerful. What are some things now? Now, those are some things that we should do, kind of first steps. When it comes to avoiding certain things, like these are things, and you said, and I heard you say, you know, you guys had some tough goes at it to start with. But what are some things that based on your there at Western, what should we do to avoid? What are some things that we need to avoid when it comes to going in that direction of being integrated?
There's not enough paper to write down everything you need to avoid. But we didn't know we needed to avoid when we were doing it. I think probably the main thing is just assuming that you know stuff
Yeah.
about other cultures. We really developed the mentality that whenever we go to a new culture, whether it was our first African American, our first Hispanic, or our first Nigerian, or our first Colombian, or Cuban, or our first Asian coming in, we kind of had to sit down at their feet and learn from them.
Sure.
And say, tell us about your culture, tell us about how you express your worship, tell us how, and so instead of us kind of telling them, we kind of had to sit at their feet and kind of listen and learn.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, I think it's just that I think we're prejudiced and we don't know it. So we need some sense of accountability. And so, like after sermons, I would preach, or after decisions, it would just be groups of people that I would interact with and ask for immediate feedback. Whether it was a decision that was made or a sermon that says, did that sound too white dominated, or just connect with you, or
Sure.
You just had to develop some vital relationships and feedback and accountability partners that are trying to help you walk through that. So I think it just become teachable.
Absolutely.
And the moment you think you know, probably it's going to be the thing you need to avoid the most.
Sure.
Just realize you have a long ways to go and you got a lot to learn from everybody.
Absolutely.
There's other things to avoid too, but I think, again, the worship is vital on this, because you just assume that, like white music, there's a battle in white music, like hymns and contemporary, but it's still white.
Right.
So you can have 15 different varieties of white music, and it's still white.
Right.
You thinking you're adjusting, but you need to avoid that little bubble that assumes that you're right, or that you know, or that your way is the only way. So that just takes a lot of relationships.
Oh, it sure does, and I imagine a lot of trial and error too. I mean, a lot of tough times. Last question. After doing that process for a while, what are some of the benefits that you saw when you said what 40 different countries, I think you said, or 40. What are some benefits when all of you guys are united together? What are some benefits that you saw as a church, as the pastor of the church? What are some things that you saw?
Immediately, you get to taste heaven on earth.
Yeah.
You get Revelation 7, fast forward it, and I mean, the Lord's Prayer says it. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and you get to live that every week. The other part is you get a global perspective of what global Christianity is.
Yeah.
I mean, we have people here in IBC in Singapore who have been through the Cultural Revolution in China. We have people in Nigeria, from Nigeria in the Houston Church, that were held at knife point by a group of extremists and saying, "Are you Christian?" And she would have said yes, and I had throat would have been cut. So you have different perspectives of Christianity that we have people that are involved in house churches in China. We have people that have gone through all kinds of persecution to be born. You know what? American Christianity is very soft, as a rule, and it's very superficial at times. And it's definitely driven by comfort and convenience, and kind of like market-driven shopping center. And so you just kind of walk through that, and you immediate benefit. You taste heaven, You can see God from a different perspective.
Absolutely. And I meant to throw this one at you, but I'm always interested in resources, and your book is an excellent resource. But just off the top of your head, maybe a resource here or a couple resources. What are some things that we as ministers maybe get our hands on and empower our members to read, and our leadership and our elders and all that? What are a couple resources that you would recommend?
The sad thing about what you're talking about is that the pioneers in this who have written have been mainly sociologists who are Christians.
Yep.
Any of Michael Emerson's books, he started United by Faith, and then he's written United by Faith, and then he and people can dream together. There's also George Yancey out of University of North Texas that's done a lot of like interracial dating and things like that. So he goes with it from a personal, interactive relation. But as far as Christian literature, this is what's been, there's a barrenness in that area. And so one of the key resources that we now use is the Mosaics Network. And Mark Demise, who is out of Central Arkansas, he does Mosaic Church there, he's kind of like the leader of that network. And you go to their website and all they have resources available.
Wow.
And he's come up with a great books, but we also have some other writers that are beginning to contribute to that. Also, just really help you out. But again, there's just not a lot of biblical stuff. But we have some writers who make, like I know John Piper has gone through transformation in this area, and also Bill Hybels has gone through the transformation. They really transformed Oak Creek. So you see some of the bigger names that begin to address, like Francis Chan and some others. You begin to see people at least dealing with it.
Yeah.
But as far as just writing resources, there is a void in that area. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. This is Dr. Rodney. Hang on a little bit. This has been another episode of Youth Ministry 6.3. 6.3 comes from Nehemiah 6:3. I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Thank you so much for being on, Rodney. I appreciate it.